All right, we are starting up the TownHall version 0.3 right now. As we will always do, we'll start to break into the news and kind of what's happening around FusionAuth land and kind of authentication around the world as well. Just want to bring up the same note that I've been bringing up each town hall at this point. We have our Hacktoberfest going on still, so happy October, folks. I probably won't see you until after Halloween at this point, so I hope you get to go out trick-or-treating with the kids and enjoy that candy that comes with it. Just a fun reminder, down in this post on the full issue search, we have all of our different issues that are still available. Super simple to get into. Most of them are just updating dependencies or updating a README or something like that. So definitely check that out if you want to get one of those fun badges for Hacktoberfest. I know I completed mine, so I'm pretty stoked about it. All right, up next, I'm going to cruise through this because I think on our town hall next week, if I can get him to agree to it, we'll talk more about it. But we have a new blog post up for .NET web applications using FusionAuth templates. So out there in the Visual Studio Marketplace, you can now pull this in and actually use this. And that's as brief as I'm going to keep it because, like I said, I think we'll dive into it next time. An exciting and fun note, we do have a special guest on, so he might talk more about this today, but we have our EAP release for version 1.48.0 coming out, or it is already out. The full release for 1.48 is coming out. Highlights again, you can now get more than 10,000 results from user search. Access tokens are available to the OIDC reconcile Lambda, which is pretty sweet. The ability to expand requests to the user API, that allows you to request large amounts of user data more performantly. Curl is added to the Docker image so you can do health checks. Webhook messages now get a signature so you can do more validation against that. Escape keys to close modals. And of course, I have our EAP up. So that's my list of things that we have for this release coming out. Just as we start to dive in here today, we're doing a lot on PHP. And at this point, I think I'm going to bring up Dan Moore, our special guest. Welcome, Dan.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Alex.
I really appreciate you coming on. You're my boss, so you could always say, no, I don't want to come on this silly town hall. But, I got you here, so it's exciting.
Yeah, no.
I was going to start showing off all of our different PHP client libraries. And since you are like the docs master, maybe there's a few things that I will miss. So you can point me to the right direction here. So yeah, here is our kind of our PHP client library SDK. So if you ever need to get to that, it's under our development guide. Hopefully, Dan, I don't know if this is a hot take or if I can say this yet, but we'll be releasing our new doc site soon. So we're just looking at the preview earlier today. A couple little minor things that need to get fixed before we release that out, but this is going to look so much better in the future. Are you as excited as I am?
Oh my gosh. I mean, to me, the look and feel is way more modern. And then the other thing that I think is great is the organizational structure. Like we've kind of broken things out into what you need to know when you're just getting started with FusionAuth versus building on it versus operating it. And I'm looking forward to kind of that structure being more intuitive for everybody.
100%. So yeah, there's our SDK for the PHP if you want to dive into that side of it. Also for
actually, can I chime in real quick on that? Yeah. So one thing that's worth noting is this SDK is like a super thin layer right over our APIs. And so everything that you can do via our APIs, you should be able to do with the client SDK. If you can't, we want to know about it. So it's not like a full featured like opinionated SDK. It's much more like, hey, here's a bunch of Legos. Build what you want, build what you need.
Yeah, great point. On that note, we have a quick start for Laravel that's called out. Now, this is being updated, so this still points to kind of our old post that's out here. Still very valid post. Still works with our example GitHub repos and things like that are associated with it. But this will be all new the next time you see it. Soon, Dan, I think.
Soon, I'd say next week or so. I had to commit to a time.
So maybe if you're watching this later, this will be redirected to the new quick start, which will be awesome. The reason I have Dan on today is he will be a special guest at the Longhorn PHP conference coming up. When is it? Next week? Week after?
Next Thursday through Saturday, actually.
Wowzers. That's gonna be fun, huh?
Yeah, so it's nice that I get to speak, but I have been to other community conferences like this before, and like the 200 to 300 person conferences, you just get so much great interaction with people. You get to learn what they're working on, what they're thinking about, and so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Into the weekend too. So are they like taking the speakers out like they usually do, doing something fun?
There's a speaker dinner
Nice.
on, I want
No
to say,
paintball, nothing like that.
not that I know of. I think I'm not sure why so it's a day of workshops on Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday are the actual conference talks. And I don't actually know why they do that, but maybe it's to make it more accessible because you only have to take one day off of work if you just want to do the
Yeah,
conferences.
that's fair.
And
That's
then
interesting.
for everybody who's on this call who's not in Austin, Texas, USA, which is where Longhorn PHP is happening, there's actually a virtual option. So you can pay $100 and get access to all of the talks from anywhere in the world.
Cool. Do you know if the talks will be public after that or like up on YouTube or anything?
I don't. I mean,
Okay.
I know they're recording them for the purpose of this. I don't know about like the plans afterwards.
Cool. Awesome. Here is the site for Longhorn PHP. There's Dan's awesome face and a couple of talks you're doing, protecting your APIs, and then what PHP developers need to know about JOTs, JWTs. I still don't know why we pronounce it that way, but that's fine.
It's in the spec. That's why we pronounce it like JOT.
Because it's in the spec. Awesome. If only we had a spec for GIF or GIF.
Oh my gosh,
fantastic.
that's that.
So I think we're going to break down a little bit more of this, right? A little bit of what your talk's going to be about. And are you ready to share?
Yeah. So just to set some context, I'm doing one talk, which you mentioned, and then I'm also doing a 3-hour workshop about protecting APIs with PHP APIs. And so we kind of start from the ground up, and I'd love to show off the first section of that workshop if that's possible.
Awesome. Let's do it. Does this view work for you, or do you want more?
No, it works great. So one thing that's worth noting is shout out to a company called Instruct. They've done a really good job of standing up a workshop environment online. So this is entirely browser based, but you have a shell, you have a VS Code editor with even Echo, JSON, even code completion, things like that. So it makes it really kind of cool to build in a workshop that actually is something that people can interact with. Because I've definitely been in workshops where you spend a lot of time just like getting the environment set up. So this one, I'm just gonna kind of.
You ever think about how spoiled we are? Like 20 years ago, would you ever imagine that we could do this? This is incredible. Like it's basically spins up a VM and like comes through the console and everything through the web. It's unbelievable.
Totally. And so you can do things like, so I have Nginx running on this VM, and so I can run this curl command, and it gets me back a Chuck Norris joke, because by the way, this is a Chuck Norris themed workshop. But you can do things like edit the file, and I don't have a Chuck Norris joke with me, so I'm just gonna save it. And it even Command S worked, right? Which is just nuts to me. And then I can run it again, and I think I installed VI. So if you're really VI /var WHTML Chuck, VI works. So I don't need to go over the whole thing. I have about 20 different kind of exercises. Actually, I will. Let me just. One thing that's really nice about this is you actually get they have a built-in quiz section too. So I'm going to be doing the presentation. So I'm kind of flipping back and forth between, your normal typical PowerPoint slides and then presentation. So I just kind of built that in. And last one I want to show, and then we can kind of jump back to, your agenda, Alex,
This is it. This is my agenda. It's great. We do
Nice.
have a question about kind of the code afterwards. So here's from Mark: is the code or the workshop going to be available afterwards? So
Sure.
we talked about like the recordings, but is this actual setup available somewhere?
Yeah. So the actual workshop like itself, like Instruct is I'm not sure whether that's going to be available. The actual code that you saw will be. I have that all in a GitHub repo that I'll be publishing along with the presentation. So,
Nice.
so actually, I don't know whether anyone wants to vote on this poll, but there is a correct answer about who can beat Chuck Norris.
No one. I can't go. No one, right?
Bruce Lee's pretty badass.
Here's my like joke. I think. So what is it? Chuck Norris could cure cancer with his tears, but he's never cried, so we'll never know. Something like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So Alex votes for no one. I'm gonna check it and see. And you're right. So, but I really like this environment. It's actually kind of cool for anybody else and this is not a PHP specific thing. If you're looking at using Instruct, they actually have a command line interface. So all of this stuff is defined in Markdown and can be versioned, and you can kind of make copies of it and move stuff around. It's a really great learning platform as far as I can tell for this kind of thing. And also it's useful for webinars and other things like that.
I think we might have an additional vote here. Mike might take his ear. That's scary.
Oh, Mike might take his ear. Nice. Yeah. Nice.
Might get hungry.
Right. Yeah. So this workshop is going to be 3 hours. We're going to cover like API keys, hashed API keys, jots from a server like FusionAuth, where it's an identity provider. We're going to cover API gateways, and we're going to talk about all these different things, which are all trade-offs. And, none of this is PHP specific. It's PHP is kind of the language underneath it for this particular workshop, but these API issues, anytime you're building an API that's going to be consumed by any client, public, private, yours, something you're building for somebody else, you need to think about how do you secure it. And there have definitely been issues in the past where people did not do that, or they bolted on at the end, and it caused significant pain. So, not to be solemn or anything on a town hall, but it's important to do.
And we talk often a lot, like in FusionAuth, you can actually set up different roles, and that can come through on your like jot tokens to whatever thing you're running for your API. Like in this case, so your PHP backend, you can actually pull in that user. And is that a safe way, as long as you're guaranteeing like the signatures are solid and things like that, that you can push those out, or like determine if that user really is an admin or something like that?
Yeah, so that's a really good thing, and this actually is something that came up on Hacker News today, where I'm gonna just get out of here. I don't know if we're getting a lot of value out of that anymore. So there were 3 different exploits that this company found because people did not verify their jots, because the API that consumed the jot, that received it, was getting a jot and it looked okay. And so they just kind of went their merry way. And then attackers were able to find that. So you always have to verify your signature. And then once you've done that, you have some assurance that things weren't changed in flight, which is great. And then from there, you can do back channel communications, right? Extract a claim that indicates it's a user, pull that using perhaps the PHP client library or some other API. And then you kind of know. But I see so many people that are just basically using the defaults from their jot libraries, which it's a fine place to start. And you definitely should use a library if you can, but you need to make sure that you kind of validate all those claims, and that the signature stuff that you're doing, the signature verification, is really correct, right? You want to make sure that you understand what's going on.
Nice. So it's not just taking that like base 64 encoding jot, taking a look at it, decoded fine, we're good to go. It's like you need to take that next step. And like, is Pixie a way to like deal with that? What does that look like? How do you like that client side only?
Yeah, Pixie is not really going to be helpful in this scenario, right? Because Pixie is something that is really great for making sure that I get the right token to the right client. That's really what it protects against is somebody kind of hijacking that token. But we're talking about further downstream where you're an API and you just want to know who that person is or who that entity is, and making sure that they receive that token from the correct authorization server. They didn't make it up, because anybody can make up a job that says anything. You need that signature verification to make sure that you're not giving access to your bank account to some random person or other kind of negative ramifications.
Cool. And is that the level of things that you'll be covering in the Longhorn PHP protecting your APIs workshop?
Yeah, towards the end, right? I start out and I'm like, hey, let's build an API key. What does that look like? And then I say, here's where API keys are, strong, and here's where they have some flaws. And then we go on progressively, and then we talk about some of the in-depth stuff around JOTs. First, where to store them. First party APIs have different storage requirements than if it's a third party API. I talk about asymmetric versus symmetric signing algorithms and why you'd pick one over the other, and they both have their place. And they're both in the spec, but there are definitely times when you want to pick one or the other.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what am I missing from the FusionAuth side on PHP? I mean, we have a few things we covered there. There's got to be more stuff, because you love PHP, right, Dan?
PHP is one of the languages that I really like, just because you can get going with it so quick.
Yep.
I would say the other thing I would think about with PHP is we have some WordPress and Drupal integrations coming soon. And one of the things that I like about FusionAuth is that we talked about client libraries, and those are very good for manipulating FusionAuth, right? If you want to add a tenant or add an application or add like a signing key, and you want to manually do all that, or not manually, automatically do all that with a bunch of scripts, client library is awesome. If you're looking to actually integrate your application, you have a WordPress app or you have a Laravel or a Symfony app, then FusionAuth is going to be pretty good about complying with any OIDC compatible provider. So Socialite, I think, is one of the ones for Laravel. It's basically you drop in the client ID and maybe the client secret, and it should be good to go. So there's kind of two worlds of PHP. It's like, do I just want to get login added to my application as quickly as possible? Well, then go with the open source library that supports OIDC and use FusionAuth's, great compatibility there. If you're like, no, I want to be able to manipulate my FusionAuth application to bring it, to do config management or something like that, then a client library is something you're going to want to reach for.
Nice. I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit, because you brought up WordPress, and I'm kind of thinking about it now. So I want to, and this quick start's going to be out soon. And I actually, in my head, I was thinking it was already out because I just reviewed it. When I stand up my WordPress, I'm a mom and pop shop. I'm like, I need authentication. I heard about this FusionAuth thing. What's the easiest way for me to get started? Is it like FusionAuth's cloud hosting solution at that point? And then, you move into enterprise side. What's the easiest way for them to get started?
Sure. So it really depends on your needs. And honestly, if all you have is like one WordPress site, then I would say don't use FusionAuth. I don't think you need to externalize your authentication for that.
So you're like, it's got a password login thing. I'm good.
If you're a mom and pop shop and you have like 2 people or 3 people updating your WordPress site, no, don't go with that external solution. If you have 10 WordPress sites or even 2, then suddenly you're going to start to think about, well, how do I onboard and offboard people? How do I make sure that Sam can edit stuff on WordPress site A but can't edit stuff on WordPress site B? We actually have a partner who is called Powered by Coffee. They're out of the UK, and they're really big into WordPress and media. Nice. They have a podcast that's all about media that I was on a couple of years ago. And they actually built like a syncing library between FusionAuth and WordPress, because they work with the scale of clients where it makes a lot of sense to use an external identity provider. But to answer your question, the easiest way to get started with FusionAuth, if you don't mind dropping some money, is with FusionAuth Cloud, because it's, click, 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 and you're good to go. If you're more of a tinkerer, or you want that kind of control of making sure your user data doesn't leave your VPS or data center or whatnot, then I would say getting started with Docker is pretty easy for kind of the hobbyist. A lot of people use the Linux packages like an RPM or a deb file. There you need to actually have a database set up. So Postgres or MySQL. Sorry, this feels like a long answer to like a pretty simple question, but
I think it's fair. Like, this is always what goes through my head. I think as a dev, like, how far do we take this? And this is a great answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean,
I think the interesting thing about WordPress that always comes up in that review of our new quick start, like, there's, I don't know, four not plugins. Is plugin the right word for WordPress? Yeah, plugins that you can use. And it always blows my mind. Like, these are just out there and available. And so, like, you get FusionAuth set up. Here's 4 plugins. You put in like 3 different entries, and boom, you're done. And it always kind of blows my mind about how big WordPress got and like how great PHP was forever. And now all you hear about is the rest of the stuff. And I think WordPress still runs like what, 30-40% of the internet. It's
some
wild,
huge chunk. Yeah, for sure. Although actually I had a conversation with a former colleague recently, and he has done some stuff for small businesses and actually has moved more towards static site generators, because for some, if you need like a WordPress, like a member site where people are discussing things and there's like a forum and comments and stuff like that, then I think WordPress is a good option. If all you're doing is a brochure site where you have 10 pages that you update once a year, then, he said he has sites that have been running for 5 years that he hasn't updated, or he hasn't had any security issues with, right? Whereas I would not want to run WordPress from 5 years ago. I think that would be a bad choice. So,
right. Yeah. That's a great point. Like, just raw HTML or data out on the page on a CDN, it's about as fast as you can get.
And no one's going to be able to hack it, right? Like, right. Oh, you got my HTML that I gave you anyway. Like, what are you going to do?
Hey, freeze free. Good job. Nice. Well, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. I hope your talk goes wonderfully. I can't wait to hear everything that you did down there in Texas.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Alex.
Yeah. Appreciate you letting me do these town halls. I get to learn a lot.
Awesome.
See you next time.
When you build an app, writing a login, registration, and user management system seems simple. But pretty soon you're implementing complex standards like OAuth, OpenID Connect, and SAML. Plus, you'll need to build out additional login features. And don't forget all the acronyms you need to comply with. Secure Auth is not optional, but the time that it takes to build it is. Save time and use FusionAuth. FusionAuth provides authentication, authorization, and user management for any app. It's built for devs to deploy anywhere and integrate with anything in minutes. Seriously, anywhere, anything, and in minutes. FusionAuth installs on any platform, any device, anywhere in the world, including AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and other clouds. And it scales to hundreds of millions of users. To keep user data safe, FusionAuth provides all the controls you need to manage passwords and comply with security requirements and regulations. When users log in with FusionAuth, they'll see your brand, not ours. Theme login pages, style emails, and localized messages to ensure your brand is front and center. And FusionAuth comes with a pre-built management UI to manage and report on users. So stop grinding on Auth and go build something awesome. Get started using FusionAuth for free. Wait, for free? Are we sure that's supposed to be like that?